Okay, now you've done it. You've kicked the anthill. You've gotten the internet mad at you. So now what? I need to preface this with a giant caveat on this one. A lot of what I'm going to talk about here is very dependent upon your position within the internet, arguably, your various privileges, your position of power within the organization that you are speaking for. Be very careful. Some of the things that I've gotten away with, you may or may not get away with. Some things that you can do might not work for me. Let's talk about some of your options. First thing you can do is say nothing. You've said this stupid thing, or you've said a thing that the internet has gotten mad about. You can just stay quiet and hopefully let it blow over. This is the go-to for PR a lot of the times, and actually for good reason, because the internet has a short attention span, and chances are they will move past the story pretty quickly. Now, do nothing really means do nothing. You said the thing, you don't delete it, you don't start blocking people, you just let it hang out in the world for everyone to see, and then just wait for it to blow over. For some things, this is not going to happen. This is not an option for all missteps. And this is a place, I think, where my particular position is particularly relevant, because white guy says stupid thing on internet isn't a particularly important or long-lasting occurrence. So the cycle moves on relatively quickly if I say something that the internet doesn't agree with. If you are someone who is in a position where your race or gender identity is something that's going to garner scrutiny, then saying nothing may not be an option, because the internet is a lot more excited to chew on that bone potentially, and to take the thing that you've said and use it as an opportunity to undermine your community as a whole. This can be a very powerful strategy, even for things that are fairly big, but be aware you have to keep monitoring the situation, because things might start to escalate and grow during your silence. And if it gets too far, then you actually might have to abandon this strategy and move on to something else. You can retract or apologize, and arguably, you don't necessarily even have to actually be sorry to do a retraction. If you are actually sorry about what you said, if you actually feel that what you said is wrong, then there can be a lot of power in a real, actual, sincere apology, because you can go out to the community and say, I said this thing, that was inappropriate, or I wasn't thinking about this connotation, and try to clarify what you were doing, but essentially mostly your statement is apologizing for your actions. This can just throw fuel on the fire, and in some cases you're not really sorry, in which case you don't want to empower the other side of the argument necessarily. But again, sometimes this is worth doing. The community actually often takes an apology pretty well, and that can lop the end of the cycle off and end it and move things on. If you really strongly believe that this is a fight that you want to have, you can double down. You can say, no, I meant to say that. Not only that, I meant to say it super much. And what you're essentially doing in that case is you're throwing gasoline on this fire. And maybe that's what you want to do. Maybe you want to have this fight. So if this is something in a space where you feel the ground cannot be ceded to the opposite point of view at all, then doubling down might be the way to go. But this is going to be a fight. You're not letting the cycle move on. You're actually preventing it from moving on, and you're actually amplifying it and making it bigger. In some cases, that's exactly what you want to do. And sometimes you just want to have a fight. And in that case, this is probably not the thing to do. So be careful. It can be easy to feel like this is the hill that I will die upon, even for topics or subjects or missteps that really you didn't really want to die on that hill. And this can happen. The story can get away from you, and you can end up out of control and just being labeled as this person with this specific set of views because you needed to wade into the discourse. Remember that if you are someone who is the public representation of a franchise or a project or a studio or a company that you don't always have the same options of engagement that you do as a normal citizen. You carry baggage with you from the fact that you are representative of this company. I'm not talking about what your duties are in terms of representing the company in the right way. Screw that. What I'm saying is, because you're seen as a representative of the company, there's a certain degree of professionalism and neutrality that comes along with that. So if you are going to double down as a corporate representative, that is going to be seen as a bigger deal than it would be if you're doing it on your private Twitter account. Definitely still a tool that's available for you. There are definitely fights worth having, but know that if you start this fight, you are going to amplify this conversation quite immensely. The final option is you can try to hide. You can delete the tweet. You can take your YouTube video down. This, for me, doesn't seem like a very effective strategy. There's the term called the Streisand effect, which is the act of hiding something often amplifies it in that act. If it's a fairly small deal right now, maybe you can get away with sweeping it under the rug. But I think in that case, usually you are better off just going back to the first thing I talked about, which is doing nothing. Just let it hang out there in the ether. By deleting it, you're acknowledging that there was something wrong with it, and screenshots exist, the Wayback Machine exists. If you get rid of it, you don't really completely get rid of it, and you are running the risk of amplifying the other side of this conversation by essentially saying, this was bad enough that I got rid of it, but I'm not willing to apologize or do a retraction. Think about that. It might be worth doing in some cases, but I would argue that most of the time it's not worth hiding, that you're better off using one of the other strategies that we've talked about. Taking hiding even further, you can go all the way to deleting your account, abandoning the space altogether. In some cases, if the harassment is bad enough, you may feel that you have no other choice, and you should always put your own safety and sanity ahead of all the rest of this stuff. But you are kind of abandoning the battlefield to some degree. So deleting your account is an extreme case, and I would personally reserve it for cases where you've lost control of the situation to such a degree that you no longer are able to really engage in a conversation whatsoever. But see the beginning of the video, giant pile of privilege here, so your mileage is definitely going to vary on this one. One thing I didn't talk about really in this video at all is blocking people. And I think I would actually argue that that is something that sits apart from this conversation. You probably aren't blocking people because you said something stupid. You may be blocking people because they are harassing you because you said something stupid. But in that case, I would argue that that is about them, not about you. So the rest of these things are about what you are doing in response to something that you did, whether or not it was something stupid or just something that the community didn't like. These are ways that you can address those kinds of things that you did. When you are blocking someone, you are blocking someone because of an action they took, not because of something that you did. So I think blocking people in your community who are interacting with you in a way that you deem unacceptable is certainly a tool that remains in your toolbox and can be applied on top of most of the other strategies in this video. I might argue that if you are trying to do nothing, blocking people might still constitute something. So you have to weigh that because it's going to draw attention to the situation. So in the do nothing case, blocking might inadvertently amplify the situation in a way that you don't really want to happen. But you also need to keep your own social media community clean, and as a result, blocking is a tool that you should at least consider using. I have blocked virtually no people. I believe my block list on Twitter is one person, but I also am a person that doesn't attract the harassment that members of other communities do because of their gender or because of their race. Again, this is a place where my advice may not be applicable to you, and I would say to you that you should feel free to block people that are interacting with you in a way that you don't appreciate. Arguably, I'm probably way too light on the block button. So I would say go for it, block people as you see fit. It will probably be better for your sanity, as it probably would be better for my sanity. The internet is a wonderful and terrible place. So be careful, because as someone who is speaking for a greater organization, more people are listening. And so you are going to say stupid things. You are going to say things you believe that kick anthills, and you need to decide what you're going to do in each case in order to respond to that. And even though it can stick in your craw, sometimes do nothing is actually the best way to go. A special thanks to my members. They provide the resources that this channel needs to keep running. If you're interested in becoming a member, there's a link to that down in the description. If you found this video interesting, give it a thumbs up, because that will signal to YouTube that it's worth sharing with other people. Additionally, we have merch. This is the High Tea and the High Seas shirt. If you'd like to pick that up or something else, there's a shelf below this video to take a look at that. What do you think? Do you feel that you deserve a response from anyone in the community who says something bad? What do you think about the do nothing response? I used to hate it a lot, but I've actually come around to it as I've watched it work in so many cases. It can be a difficult one to do because you feel like action is needed, but give it a try, you might be surprised. I will see you again soon. Thank you.